I always talk about, as I was building the business, my whole goal was to hire people smarter than me, to teach them how to do what I was doing as an entrepreneur. I was doing everything, right? You start the business and you're wearing all the hats. So then when you hire other people, I say, okay, here, you're going to build the business development department and do it much better than I ever did. Here's what I did. Now you go make it your own and be better at it than I am. And seeing that, that these people have very different skill sets than I do. And I'm very appreciative of that because it's different perspectives, different age groups, different thought processes, and different experiences. And so to your point, it brings a beautiful symphony that allows the leader to make better decisions when you have that diversity of thought.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I have the honor of introducing a phenomenal guest to the show, Christy Pretzinger. Christy is an innovator who has revolutionized healthcare content creation. Her unique approach to business, centered on kindness and personal development, has not only transformed workplace, but also empowered teams to achieve unprecedented success. She speaks to various industries, not just healthcare, and is writing a book to help people thrive in their environment. So I'm really excited to have her on. So with no further ado, Christy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Let's talk about your journey. And I know you're focusing on, you have healthcare and you're doing other industries as well. Why is that so dear to your heart? What's the journey that led you here?
Well, the reason that we ended up in healthcare, I always refer to the oracle of Oprah when she says luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So there were kind of a conflation of things that happened back in, I believe it was around 2007, that I ended up deciding to focus solely on healthcare, originally just hospitals. And then as over the many years since, we've expanded into the entire healthcare ecosphere. And now we are looking to expand even further to other different verticals. We don't know which ones yet, but we're going to expand into other verticals as well.
Yeah, because I can see how there's a need for it with healthcare and doctors because they're so busy providing the service that they don't really pay attention to the marketing aspect of it or content creation. Is that why you intentionally went into it as well?
Yeah, well, the reason that it happened was both of my parents were diagnosed with cancer at the same time. And so at that time, it became very obvious to me that it was almost impossible to know whether you were getting accurate healthcare information online. You know, we all go to Dr. Google. And this was obviously many years ago before there was this kind of thing going on, because actually we did create a new category. Nobody was doing what we started doing, which was creating content simply, actually at the time, writing just for hospitals and healthcare. And so what I realized was there are all sorts of opinions out there. You didn't know if it was just somebody in a Reddit thread or somebody who just had an opinion, and how could you get really good, accurate information that could allow you to make the best healthcare decision for you. So I realized I was certainly not the only person who had a need like that, and thought, well, this is really something that needs to be done, and people need this information so that, again, they can be equipped to make the best healthcare decision for them or their family member.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can totally see that. And there's a need, right? Out of necessity, a need is birth, a solution is birth, and you've done just that. Yeah. Tell us how it works precisely, because how you go into these healthcares, do you get doctors, the clinics, and then you go in and you kind of present a proposal of how they can be positioned in the market or online?
Yeah, we do. We do have a particular process. We've grown pretty much. We have over 100 people that work with us now, and many of them are contractors. But we have a very structured process and a way that we do things that I don't talk too specifically about because it's proprietary. But we do have a way that, we have a sales team that goes in. And really the biggest thing for us is building the relationship, because our mission is we build relationships one word at a time. And so the way that we take that out is we say we do that with each other, We do that with our clients. We do it with our vendors. And then we help our clients do it with their, in this case, patient population. So it's all about building relationships, which I'm sure you would understand as well. So people need that human connection. And so that's very much what we do, and how we have built the business and the business has grown is because of the relationships that not only our business development team, but also then all of our project managers and writers build these relationships with our clients. So it's not transactional. It's very relational. And we do highly custom content. So we will interview a doctor, anything from an orthopedic surgeon, a neurosurgeon, an oncologist, whatever it happens to be. And then we do the alchemy of turning that medical jargon into language that is understandable using plain language standards. So we make it the right reading level and understandable to the people who are reading it, who obviously usually are not doctors.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And the aspect of building trust is key to actually getting to be able to be in their shoes and tell their story effectively, so others can resonate with it. Now, I understand you have you said you have a team of over 100, and I think at one point I saw it was an all-girl team that you had
an all-girl
team.
Okay. Yeah, it's an all-girl team, and in the 100 there are some men that work with us, but a lot of men don't apply to a company called Writer Girl. So that name has served us very well over the years. But we are actually rebranding starting in spring of 24 to WG Content, because we do so much more than just writing, and so really we want to capture everything that we do, and hopefully we can get more diversity in terms of gender as well. Although I will say. And I certainly don't mean this to be offensive, but for generations, legions, men have been having businesses that were all men and nobody ever said a word about it, did they? So right. I don't feel too bad about the fact that we have an all-woman organization. I always stress that just because we're all women doesn't mean that we don't have diversity, because we have very different life experiences. We bring very different things to the table, not only just because of life experiences, but generationally. We span various ages. And I think that helps too. And that also helps having women in the healthcare space do the writing and working with them, is because it's a largely female dominated space in terms of who works in hospitals, and then also who makes healthcure decisions. It's usually the woman. So that really does actually play to our favor in that way.
Yeah, it does. And you guys are powerful in that way, just like Beyonce, right? Because she initially had a all team band of women. Empowering women in that way. But I agree with you. In the household, as a wife, as a mother, you are the one scheduling the appointments for your husband, for your kids. You're making sure you're on top of it, essentially, because the guys are not really in tune to that, to those things. And you're
also taking care probably of either your in-laws or
elders.
If you're a sandwich generation. So there's a lot going on there, and being able to have good, reliable, true medical content is really important in that case. So,
right. And for you to build those relationships and trust outside of the office, you had to foster it in-house, right, with your team. Let's talk about that a little bit, and what an entrepreneur or leader, a founder, can actually learn from that, and how to execute building that trust, that relationship in-house, to then take it outside to the customers, to the clients.
Now you're in my sweet spot. This is like my passion, actually. I'm very fortunate in that I have a wonderful team of people who run the day-to-day of the business, so I don't do that anymore. And so what I've discovered over time is that my passion is about creating an environment where people can thrive. And I said many years ago when I was first building this, I said to my accountant at the time that if I couldn't build a business based on kindness, then I would just go back to being a freelance writer. And so I said that. It was my intention. It wasn't something I thought about every day, but it was my intention. So kind of what you talk about, different things like, what's your intention? And even if you don't talk about it every day, if you put it out there, later on in hindsight, I look back and go, oh, wow, look at that. I built a business based on kindness. The people who were attracted resonated with that. And we live out the values of the building relationships one word at a time. And then our values are, we are empowered, curious, kind, and fun. And so everyone in the organization, we have all sorts of things that we do to I always say that we engineer the structure and the processes to allow for the weaving of the tapestry of the culture, because the culture is so important. And I think as a leader, as an entrepreneur, that you set the tone. You're the visionary, you set the tone, but you really need the people that you are leading to live out that that promise, that cultural promise. And so what happens is that the people that work with this organization all protect this culture. They all, care about one another. Part of that, in all honesty, might be because we are feminine. And I feel like there is a big need for feminine energy in the world right now, not necessarily gender, just feminine energy. And when I think of that, I speak of that, I mean the things that someone called soft skills, which are actually the hard skills, empathy, openness, kindness, vulnerability, those things that require both attention and intention and tend to skew more feminine energy. Doesn't mean men don't do it. It just means it's probably a little more natural for women. And that is really very much what our environment is built on. And as I said, you were talking about trust. And one of the things I talk about is that trust is a long game, that, people don't believe you right away, especially in this world when you say something. But if you really do say what you mean and mean what you say, over time, people see that. And then other people who have been with you for longer can tell newer people, oh, yeah, she really does mean that. And when she says it, she means it. And that plays a huge part in building that environment then where we all know that we can trust one another. And then in addition to having the individual EQ, teaching people about, their own self-awareness and all of that, then we can also in a larger way develop the team EQ, which is a whole nother skill set that contributes to a wonderful environment.
Yeah, I was going to add that we should put EQ to the list of the skills that you mentioned, because it's so pivotal, because it's underestimated. A lot of us underestimate the power of emotional intelligence. Yes. And it's not just in a team of women. We're talking about big organizations, and just having it, knowing how to utilize it and actually regulate your own, but also being able to assess and recognize other people's emotions so that they don't impact you too much. You don't take on their own energy. If they're having a bad day, you don't let that penetrate and offend you.
That's a very big skill, is that being able to just keep your side of the street clean and not be responsible for other people's feelings. You're talking about some pretty high level skills there, but we actually practice something called the Enneagram. Are you familiar with the Enneagram? No. It's a personality typing. There's a million personality typings out there, but the reason that I chose the Enneagram is because it looks at underneath at the motivation for the behavior. So it doesn't just look at behavior like most of the other ones do. This actually looks at why you behave as you do. And so we do workshops within the organization, and everyone is typed. That's what we call it before they join. And then we learn about ourselves. We use that as a tool to develop more self-awareness and learn how to moderate the own things in your behavior that might, I always say we rub up against each other and rub off the rough edges, like polishing stones. And so being aware of those things, and then also understanding what someone else's type is and being like, oh, okay, this person processes more slowly than me. I need to slow down a little bit, because I process quickly doesn't mean I'm smarter. It just means I process quickly. And they actually process more slowly and might be more thoughtful than I am in their response. So, those kind of things that help you have that, that's more like the team EQ that goes along with that.
Yeah, and the contrast is beautiful within itself, because then you complement each other, right? And where one weakness is, there's a strength in the other, and you just kind of come in together, and it's this great symphony.
And that's a lovely way of putting it, really. I always talk about, as I was building the business, my whole goal was to hire people smarter than me, to teach them how to do what I was doing as an entrepreneur. I was doing everything, right? You start the business and you're wearing all the hats. So then when you hire other people, I say, okay, here, you're going to build the business development department and do it much better than I ever did. Here's what I did. Now you go make it your own and be better at it than I am. And seeing that that these people have very different skill sets than I do. And I'm very appreciative of that, because it's different perspectives, different age groups, different thought processes, and different experiences. And so to your point, it brings a beautiful symphony that allows the leader to make better decisions when you have that diversity of thought.
Yeah, that allows you to focus on your genius zone, because you don't want to have to go learn how to do, TikTok. We bring somebody who's all about it, who knows it, who knows the trend, and that way you can just let them run with it. And I love that sense of autonomy that you give them. I want to speak to that a little bit, because a lot of us are coming from 9-to-5 jobs, right? We're going into the entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of purging that has to be done of like, bad habits that we
Yes.
picked up in our day-to-day routine. And so a lot of it is being a leader that actually not only empower people, but give them the autonomy, the freedom to be creative, to step into their own genius zone. So let's speak to that a little bit, and like how that affects the bottom line.
Oh, that's a really good question, because that's actually the talk that I give in the book that I'm writing is about your cultural balance sheet and how the culture actually does impact your bottom line. And I think one of the main things that it impacts, that is a hidden cost on a balance sheet, is turnover, right? We don't see that on a balance sheet, but boy, we all know, if you've ever had an employee, if they leave, everything walks out the door with them. So it's really worth your time to build an environment where they want to stay, where they can grow, where, to your point, they can work in their zone of genius and be a full person. One of the things that, as I was building this, I wanted people to be able to have the same experience I had when I had a child, that I could still be involved in his life, pick him up at school, go work in the lunchroom, or do whatever I wanted to do, and yet still have meaningful work. And that's very much something that we do, that the people are allowed, like, nobody has to clear it with someone if you need to pick up your child or, go to a doctor appointment. It's just assumed that you are an adult and you can get your work done in the allotted time. And that goes a long way towards building that culture too. People feel, to your point, they feel empowered, but they also feel trusted, to be treated like an adult instead of, I'm not a clock watcher, and I don't want to do that for anyone. I trust them. If I didn't trust them, they wouldn't be part of the organization. And that for me is very important.
Yeah. Well said. I really like that. As a marketing agency, and you're doing a lot of writing, are you concerned with ChatGPT, and have you used it to help all your team members?
Well, AI is like every minute, the minute you learn something about it, it changes again, doesn't it? And one of the things, and of course, we're definitely very interested in it. One of the things that we say about us and the work that we do is that we excel at being human. And because of the fact that we have to have interactions with people in order to create the content that we create, it's pretty hard to be replaced by AI or ChatGPT, but you can use it as a tool. So we're being very thoughtful in how we're approaching that. And a lot of hospitals and health systems and just the ecosphere are saying you can't use it at all, not at all. So we have to be clear and say, okay, so do you want us to use it as a starter document to like reduce the amount of time that we have to spend, or to create an outline or something like that? And so if we would ever choose to do that, we would make sure to clear that with our client before we did it. And at this point, it has not affected us, but I'm not a futurist. But I think that what we will continue to do, and in fact, we're looking to innovate in various ways, is to further our mission of building relationships one word at a time. And what other ways are there that we can do that? Because I firmly believe that communicating is how you build relationships, and that can't be replaced by ChatGPT or artificial intelligence. Not at this point. I don't know about 10 years from now, 5 years from now, but at this moment, you still need the people smiling at one another and nodding and understanding one another and connecting.
Connecting and building that trust. And like you said, you can't do it behind a machine. Correct. Yes. Christy, let's talk about your morning routine. How do you get up, dress up, and show up to lead your team of over 100 and to continue to build this environment and write your book and work with the clients you do?
I'll tell you, when I'm in real productive mode, which I'm not as much as I used to be, but when I am in that, I do have a routine. And this is so crazy. Everybody knows how good meditation is for you, right? I don't need to tell you that. Everyone knows that. And yet I don't do it every day anymore, but I try. And if I did, I would get up and I would usually meditate, or sometimes read. And I tend to, when my business was really growing, I had a coach at the time who told me, your business is you and you are your business, and it won't grow until you do. And I really took that to heart. And I think that's a really important thing for a leader and entrepreneur to understand. And so I spent a lot of time reading self-help books, really, not reading, business books. I've read some business books, obviously, but I've spent much more time on my own self-awareness, trying to understand myself, the highs and the lows, the way that I affect people as a leader. And so I would get up, I would read some of that kind of work, and then I would meditate. And then I could go start my day because I could kind of clear my head. A thing that I do use sometimes now, and actually my son, who's in law school, he does use it too, is something called, for your listeners, it's called NOW, N-O-W, tonal therapy. And they're these little discs, and you can turn them on. You turn each one on and you put them on either side of you so they go into your ears. Somebody called it yoga for your ears. Mm-hmm. And it's 3 minutes of different tones coming from each one, and they never repeat themselves. So it's just 3 minutes. So it's an easy way to kind of be like, okay, I need to sit down. I need to chill for a minute. And instead of having your monkey brain going, you're just kind of listening to and anticipating another sound coming, and it's a really excellent way to kind of slow down the things going on in your head. And in fact, my son used it when he was taking the LSAT exam for law school. And so you have half of it in the first half, and then you get like a 15-minute break or something. And during that break, he listened to those because it allowed him to clear his mind. And instead of spending his time worrying about what he'd done wrong in the first half, he could focus on what to do right the second half. And it improved his score 8 points. He took it once, then he took it again, and it improved his score by 8 points. Now, he studied, obviously, again, too. But just the importance of that as part of a routine of being able to really settle your mind and kind of get into your body. And I think it's Brené Brown who says that we are emotional beings having a logical experience, not logical beings having an emotional experience. And so being able to really feel that, and this is counterintuitive to me. I am not a body type. In the Enneagram, I'm a head type. So it's very uncomfortable for me to get into my body and slow down. But I also know that body time is slower than head time. So if I can really get into my body and be aware of my breathing and be aware of my body sitting in a chair, of my feet on the earth, it really, it grounds me and slows me down and allows me, I feel like, to bring a better self to my leadership role.
Makes you present, right? Be here now, kind of thing. And a lot of times, if we're so logical and monkey brain, as you call it, is running havoc, it gets challenging, especially if you start the day with checking out emails, checking out social media, and getting up and let the day run with you. The day's gonna run you, or you run it. Is how I see it.
Exactly.
Those few minutes in the morning are crucial to kind of set the tone for the rest of it. I like that you read and stimulate your mind, calm it down. Yeah. How about affirmations? How are you on those in terms of rewiring?
I have done those. I'm one of those people who, I'm old enough now that I've done so much work on myself that I'm like, oh, I remember when I used to do that. But what happens when you get older is that it becomes part of your DNA. So I'm very aware of my self-talk, but it took a lot of conscious work to change that, to be aware of it and to change it. I used to actually write affirmations on a yellow tablet. I would pick one out and I would just write it over and over and over and over. Because there's a connection between handwriting and your brain. You actually, it processes differently. And so I would do all of that. I used to meditate to affirmations frequently. I would do that as well. I can't underestimate or I can't overestimate the importance of your self-talk and really being aware of that. That's huge.
Yeah, no, it's pivotal to rewire the brain, reframe it. Sometimes our thoughts just pick momentum. When there's a momentum going, you really can't just halt and stop it. You really got to do the work and slow it down and replace those. And that's the power of affirmations. And it's interesting to hear that you actually wrote it down because that is powerful. You've done the work. So good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us where we can find your book, when it's releasing, and also where we can connect with you.
Well, I'm hoping that the book that will be, we're going to self-publish it. We were going to go to a real publisher, and they're like, why would we do that? They don't really do much for you anymore in this world. So we're going to self-publish it, and we're hoping for the spring. We're working on it right now. We've kind of been reformatting it. It was going to be just your cultural balance sheet, building an environment where people can thrive. And now it's going to be 30 days to start building it environment where people can thrive, and giving people actual nuggets of, okay, here's what you can do. Here's what you can do. And then little sidebars with case histories from my business and other businesses of how people have applied these things and what effect that has on the culture. So we're hoping for the spring on that. And then, of course, you can find me at writergirl.com. And I'm not sure when this will air, but after that will always be available at writergirl.com. But our new company name will be wgcontent.com. And that will be coming in the spring. But I'm always available at writergirl.com.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We love quotes. So I want to leave us with one of your favorite quotes.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. The one that always comes to mind because of a writer is like Mark Twain saying that I would have made it shorter if I'd had more time. I always think that's a good one for writers. But in terms of my own things that I think about, one of the things that I tell to my team and then to other businesses that I coach is you can't get it wrong and you'll never get it done. That's just the truth. You'll never get it done and you can't get it wrong. Either way, it works, because life is a moving target, isn't it? It's like nothing ever stays the same. So if you know that, you can't get it wrong, because you can course correct, right? And you'll never get it done. It will never be done until we're no longer here. And even then, I think we're still kind of around and, our consciousness goes on, so you never get it done. Yeah. So that's something I say a lot to people, especially when they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm like, you're never going to get it done and you can't get it wrong. So keep going forward.
Ease up.
Yeah,
ease up, right? Have a little less pressure and know that this is the journey to enjoy it. I actually listened to Abraham Hicks and she said that. And so
that's where I got it from. But I didn't want to say that because some people think that's crazy. But I love Abraham. Have you ever gone to any of the conferences?
I'm scheduled to go January 6th, my first one.
Great. Where is that one? Where are you going?
San Diego.
Yeah, I think I've been to like 5 or 6 of them and I love them. And I love the thing that's huge for me out of that is when I think about the future or what I want. And even I've taught my son this and I talk to many of my employees about it is reach for the feeling first. Reach for the feeling. What is it going to feel like when you have that new car? What is it going to feel like when you have the relationship that you want? What is it going to feel like when, to my son, it's like when you get into Georgetown Law School? What's it going to feel like? And that has been really, really transformational for me. I use that all the time.
And he's got to law school. He did all that, and it works. I'm looking forward to teaching my daughter this stuff. Like, because she's in a sauce, in her being already. I'm like now diving into it, and I have to tell you, I'm in love with every piece of it.
I love it. Well, I read. Have you ever heard of the Seth books? Seth was around back in the 60s. And then I read Seth when I was like 17 or 18 years old. And I can't believe I understood a word of it. But it was all about you create your own reality. And it was much more quantum physics and hard. And then Abraham came along and simplified it and made it much easier to understand than the stuff with Seth was. And I think it's remarkable. I really do. I think it's quite remarkable. So it's fun to imbue that into your children. And now he's 22, and to see it being part of his, worldview, like that other saying is like, we see further because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And I feel like our children, if we teach them these things, they have those tools and they can stand on our shoulders and see further because they grew up with them instead of having to discover them in adulthood.
Right. Like we've had to, right? Like we've had to rediscover because all that process, like who we are, the power that we hold. And now I see when you say you've done the work, now you're more just living in that, feeling good and knowing the power. So I can totally relate to that. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you mentioned Abraham because I'm like, I don't usually cite that. I would if I knew somebody liked them, but otherwise I'm like, this is something I say.
Some people look at you
like you've sprouted horns.
Yeah. They're like, you're talking to somebody who sees dead people? What are you doing?
It's funny because people who are Christian, usually I'm like, you do realize that the Bible is material that was dictated. If that's your belief, that's where that came from. So it's the same thing, it's the same thing.
Absolutely. Christy, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so for coming and sharing
your conference. Oh, you will just love it. And if you get there early enough, sit towards the front and maybe they'll call on you. You never know.
Pick me up. You never got picked up?
Yeah, I've never been called on. I don't think I've ever really wanted to be. I don't think I ever raised my hand to be called on, but I have a friend who every time she's gone, except once, and she's gone so many times, has been called on.
Yeah. I'm banking on getting called on and just basking in that bliss and enjoying that, being in that room, that environment.
Yes.
So
And you know what? Between now and then, just reach for the feeling of what it's going to feel like. Go, and you in that row right there. Yes, you in the blue sweater. And you're going to go.
Yeah. I created that. Thank you so much, Christy.
Thank you.
Really enjoy your time. Absolutely.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.